You've counted every calorie, tried every diet, spent hours in the gym, and still something's missing. You want more than just weight loss. You want your energy back. You want your confidence restored. You want a way of living that doesn't feel like punishment. Welcome to Master Your Metabolism, where we cut through the noise, ditch the fads, and give you a real plan to become the healthiest, strongest version of you. Hosted by our team of expert coaches with proven strategies, science-based tips, and real-life encouragement, not just to help you lose fat, but actually create that lifestyle that you love. You've tried everything. Now, let's try what actually works. This is your turning point. Let's go.
Shot me.
Hey there, welcome to Master Your Metabolism. I am joined here with Calvin, Whitney, Megan, and Amanda. And today we are going to be talking about some of these weight loss drugs that are coming out and helping people to understand that the drugs are here. The drugs are a tool, right? And if there are people that are choosing to use this tool, understanding how to mitigate some of the side effects, how to be able to get the best result with what you are doing, and eventually get to a point that you can sustain these habits. So, a few things that we notice of clients coming in, I wanted Calvin to kind of touch on is when people are coming to us, they are eating very low calories, right? And they are feeling a lot of times like garbage. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about why they're feeling that way and what are some things that we can do to be able to help them to move through and get better results and start feeling better.
Right. So one of the things that we noticed early on in the game with this, when it first started to come out some years back, is we were having people that were coming to us after being on things such as like semaglutide, Ozempic, and things like that, that they were having issues of gaining weight really rapidly after. So when we got down to it, we figured out, well, this is how much they were eating when they were on it. And they said, well, we didn't have any appetite. So we lost a bunch of weight, but weren't eating much. So a lot of people need to understand that in the process, when you drop calories down like that for a period of time, even a short period of time, that your body down regulates its systems. And those are systems that you do not want down regulated because that's your metabolism, your general health, just everything. So when this happens, they are basically setting their body up for rapid fast fat gain, right? And doing that because when your body is in that stress mode, what it wants to do is slow metabolism down to keep you alive. So essentially how it was being used was basically like a crash diet, so going in just super low calories, everybody gets that quick drop. But we all know what happens after that, right? You gain mega fat back. So they lose a lot of muscle in the process. And muscle is one of the most valuable things you can have to keep weight off and to lose, not only lose weight, but keep weight off long term. And I think ultimately the goal for anybody is not just to lose the weight, but to keep the weight off and stay that way and live a healthy life. The problem is these things weren't being discussed with the clients and they weren't being educated on it properly, but they were being put in the supplements, so, and a lot of people wanting to get these things because it does work, right? For certain people. And so when this happens, because of the lack of education, they stopped eating. They would be eating 400, 500 calories a day or under 1,000 for sure. So now they've lost. Keep in mind, when you get below your basal metabolic rate, which is what the calories that your body needs just to survive, your body will switch its energy source to burning more muscle when this happens. So when you're sub 1,000 calories, when you're seeing weight drops, that's not good weight that you're dropping. That's unhealthy weight at that point, and that's messing you up. So this was an issue that we caught, early on. So what we would do is we would get the inflammation out of the body, reset it, and start the reverse diet process. So because of the severity of the deficit, that actually made this process longer than it normally would be because we have to pay attention to the other hormones that got affected by this. So there's a lot of areas that it does hit outside of just weight gain, weight loss. People losing their hair, nails getting brittle, all these things happening. So rehabilitation post drug was very important. So the thing with peptides is that they're not the enemy, and it's not that we're promoting them or are anti. We just want people to be educated on it and understand that there are a lot of healthy aspects when used properly. So people get fixated on this one causes weight loss, this one causes muscle gain, but they're not understanding what the characteristics of each one has and how to use it properly for what is off on your blood work, what your body as an individual needs. They're just saying it's weight loss. So your body may not need the same thing that the other person needs, and that's part of the issue. Is that they're just putting it as a blanket weight loss peptide and having people do it without thoroughly investigating their history, their current labs, and all, all the necessary things to find out what's the proper, peptide for them. So with that, we have to rehabilitate the body and bring it back up to a healthy level again. This can be used if you think, you know, understanding what food does for you. Your body needs to have healthy fats for many reasons: to reduce inflammation, to support testosterone, to support adrenals, just health in general, hair, nails, all that stuff. Carbohydrates are not bad either. They have their place, and proteins do. So when you get those things right in conjunction with a peptide, that's where you see magical things happen, way more than what you would expect to see, because you're using these things together and not against each other.
And I
So
think that's the thing, because I've heard people that are like, I tried taking the drugs and they weren't working for me. Well, if they start looking at, they weren't eating much before and now it makes them eat even less. And, people that the drugs were developed for diabetics. The drugs were developed to be able to control those insulin spikes and things like that. But if you're not having those issues, the way that the drug works, it's like as long as you understand what's going on in the body. Like my women with PCOS, my menopause women, my people that battle insulin resistance, they do really well. But again, it's understanding what needs to be done while you are on the drug, and also understanding, as far as, so I'll have Whitney kind of chat about it as far as training, like things to keep in mind when you know in your head that you are at risk for losing muscle. There are a couple things that you could be doing to be able to maintain that muscle and being able to maintain, because again, not just muscle but bones, because your body does not have nutrients. It's going to first use muscle, it will start using bone, because if it doesn't have what it needs, it's going to find something in the body to be able to utilize. And that's where people are now having osteoporosis and they're having all of these issues, because if you're not doing the things to maintain what your body requires, then it will find a way to survive. That's what we were developed to do.
Yeah. And, I think it's really important to focus on the fact that when your calories are that low, your body will start to break down your muscle. And that is your metabolism right there. So eventually, you're not going to be able to sustain those super low calories. And if your muscle's gone, there goes your metabolism. So that goes back to that whole fat gain. And one of the best ways to mitigate that is to continuously strength train. You want to build muscle, but you're also going to have to get an adequate amount of protein to help build that muscle too, because in order for the muscle to build, you're going to have to eat the building blocks of muscle, which is protein. And so you're going to want to do things like have a strength training program. Don't just go to the gym and do random exercises. Don't do excessive cardio, because again, you're going to dip into that muscle burning, and then that'll send things haywire in conjunction with the low calories. You want to progressively overload. That's how you're going to build that muscle. So you're going to increase weight over time. You're not going to pick up the 3-pound dumbbells and use those every single time for 20, 30 reps, maybe, to
Yeah.
where your arm's tired, but you're not actually growing muscle. And also what strength training is going to do, back to that bone density, that's going to help build your bone density. Because when you're strength training, what also happens is you're getting those microfractures and your bones repair themselves. And that's how we get strong bones. So strength training plays a big part in maintaining that weight loss, and especially, and most importantly, that fat loss in the long term. And that way you can kind of keep going, whether you choose to stay on the drug long term, whether you come off them, but that's where you'll see the progress. Instead of just, I know that that's one of the big things that's been coming out is like, yeah, people are losing weight, but look at how much lean body mass they're losing. And yes, that's true, but it doesn't have to be if you're working with a coach who can kind of help guide you and give you the training programs that are appropriate for you, you can have a lot of success with that, in addition to lifestyle and nutrition changes too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'd say that the big thing that Whitney really stressed there just kind of nails it is that do not do one of these peptides for weight loss and not lift
Yep.
weights. This is a necessity. You need to do this because you need to fight, if not anything, to keep that muscle on 100%. You do not want to lose that muscle. And one thing that a lot of people don't realize is when this is done properly with these peptides, it's actually more anabolic. So even though they get a bad name for causing muscle loss, it's not technically the peptide that's doing it. It's the lack of food that's doing it and the lack of training that's doing it. So when you think about kind of circling back around to what the characteristics are of these different peptides, they increase insulin sensitivity, they reduce inflammation. All these things increase your ability to build muscle in addition to the fat loss. So that's not being taken advantage of in these areas because people aren't understanding the big picture of it. They're just focused on the weight loss, but there's no tone. They're not going to have muscle tone if the muscle fades away. You have to lift in conjunction with it to do that. So it's not just metabolism, it's the overall look. Because if you look at the big picture, what will happen, you're going to end up looking like an 80-year-old woman that is just fragile, and malnutrition. That's not for most people an attractive look. So I don't think that's what anybody's striving for.
Yeah, and I know that there's a lot of people that get on these drugs that are like, I don't want to get bulky, right? But understanding that you are fighting to just be, right? You are fighting to maintain. And the reason we need muscle that most people don't understand is when you eat something and it produces glucose, right? And it puts glucose into the system, the insulin is produced from your pancreas and takes that and puts it away so it has places to go. Your muscle is one of those places. So if you lose muscle, that's less insulin sensitivity that you will have. So you want to have more spots because what happens is you keep having things and glucose goes up and then so much insulin keeps going. Then all of a sudden you're in insulin resistance. You'll start having belly fat, all of the things. But that is because now you don't have it. So when you get your body used to those really low calories, it's if like Megan, and Megan can kind of chat on this with going into a show and she's very low calorie. If she all of a sudden decided to go eat and go ham and eat a billion calories, like Megan can tell you what's going to happen. She may have a little bit of time that's going to work, but eventually in a couple more weeks, her body all of a sudden is going to start blowing up because it never had the time used to it. And, Megan, you can chat a little bit about this about because Calvin mentioned a reverse diet, and a lot of people don't have an idea of what that is. Just to kind of share what that looks like and really that it's more of a recovery rather than you're going to gain a bunch of weight.
Yeah, it's definitely giving your body a time to recover, giving you time for your hormones to recover. Because when you are eating very low calorie, like everyone said, everything down regulates. And so you have to just gradually give yourself time for your body and your hormones to kind of catch up, your metabolism to kind of kick back in and start working for you instead of basically working against you when you're under eating for so long. So how we do that, the reverse, we just kind of work calories up, little bits at a time, allow your body to adapt to those calories. And by doing that, you're minimizing, fat gain, but you're increasing that muscle gain and gaining that lean muscle, which is exactly what people are looking for. That's going to give you that more toned look that everyone is wanting. And definitely by adding in the strength training, I mean, that is key. And by doing this reverse, and this actually goes for anybody doing a reverse, it's all about building the habits that goes into this and the education, because so many of our clients are coming with very little knowledge about any of this, let alone adding in the drug aspect. But just a lot of education, a lot of habit building, and most importantly, just being consistent with everything from day to day. And if you get off track, you just get back on and you don't let it derail you. But those things are the key things. So I know personally, when we think about the bone loss and whatnot, and we think about the strength training, I'm thinking about my older self. I'm
Yep.
thinking about when I'm
Yeah.
70, 80, hopefully 90 years old. I would love to still be able to function independently. I don't need
Yep.
someone to take care of me, and these are the habits that we're building now. The strength training, improving your body composition, that's going to get you to that point. I don't want to be one that is at, even 65, 70 years old and I had a fall and I broke a hip and it's all downhill from there.
Yep.
So
Yep.
these habits are the ones that absolutely key, and it's never too late. So
Yep.
there is always a day
Yeah.
one. We all have a day one. So
I had a woman, she was 54 years old when she started weight training. 54 years old. And she's probably down like 60 pounds for Carol, is who I'm thinking of, Calvin. She's probably
Oh
down
yeah,
like
yeah.
60 pounds since starting. And it's
Oh
just,
yeah.
she
It's her
started,
transformation. Yeah.
she had it in her mind that, again, through the reverse, she was under eating, doing keto, all of the things, low calories. And then she started training like 6 days a week, just at 54 years old. Nothing was working, came to us. We kind of just adjusted things. And now in the reverse, she dropped like 25 pounds to start. She dropped in the cut and she's just been going through our cycles. But it's understanding what the body needs and absolutely creating those habits because it can be at any point. Like, you hear these women that are like, you can't open a jar, you can't carry your groceries. Like, you're gonna have to have some help, right? You're not going to be able to live independently if you do that. So understanding that muscle, it is super valuable for so many reasons. But the next part that I think is key is Amanda's wheelhouse, because I think it's the people that get started that do want something quick. And I get it that they will get the results in the beginning to kind of get things moving. But if they don't really address the areas of their mindset and things that have gone on that have brought them to the place that even required this drug, I think that's also key. So, Amanda, I just wanted you to kind of touch on that of sometimes that people have these relationship with food and these issues that if it's not addressed while they're on it, when they come off of it, they may do great and then they're going to wind up back in the same place.
Yeah, I think that is, at least from my lens, I always think the mindset is the most important because that's just where I live. But what I've seen with these drugs is it offers the illusion of instant gratification. So you're going to take this shot, the number on the scale is going to go down. So you're seeing a positive result. However, your result is not all encompassed by that number on the scale. And the problem with that is if you have this substance that is a magical substance, we think about generally like a magic pill, but here's a magic shot, right?
Mhm.
And it's going to take all this weight off of you. And that's great. But first of all, we have to acknowledge that these drugs were not created to be used long term. They were created to be used short term and intermittently. So if you're going to start it, you have to acknowledge that there is going to be a time in the relatively near future where you're going to come off of it. And if the circumstances around your life are exactly the same when you come off of it as when you went on it, you're going to go right back to where you started. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around that, right? And I think the way that we can mitigate that is we're not using this as a magic shot. We're using it as a tool in our toolbox. I talk a lot about having a toolbox, and we need lots of different tools in the toolbox, right? So if you have a toolbox and you only have a hammer, but you need to screw something into the wall, what are you just going to beat the screw into the, I mean, it's not going to work as effectively, right? So what we need to remember is that this is a tool to help increase your insulin sensitivity and help you drop the weight. However, it has to be used in conjunction with other moving pieces. What are those moving pieces? One is strength training, as was already mentioned. The other is proper nutrition, as Megan was mentioning, making sure that that macro ratio is on point. You're getting enough protein to sustain the muscle building that you're trying to do in the gym. And then the third piece are the thoughts. And what are those? If you got to a place where you are overweight enough, and this is coming from a girl who was 250 pounds, lost 100 pounds myself in a way that was not too different from using one of these drugs. I just didn't use the drug. I decreased calories to a place that was unimaginable, and I increased cardio. So I essentially did the same thing. And I can tell you that when I got to my 100-pound weight loss, of course I was excited. I lost 100 pounds. I looked like I was in a completely different size. I wasn't in the plus sizes, all the great things, right? But I kind of just looked like a smaller version of my fat self. So there was no definition where I hoped it would be. The toning wasn't there. I was kind of flabby and there was some skin. And that's really disheartening after putting in all of that effort. And that's very similar to what happens to a lot of people who use these drugs and don't necessarily jump on the training and nutrition bandwagon. Fortunately, we can add those back in and correct some of those things. But that's all going to be dependent on your ability to change the way that you think. And so if you're going to use one of these substances and think that you can eat cheeseburgers every day, you are sorely mistaken, because that simply isn't feasible, right? So it's really wrapping your head around the fact that you are going to have to add a lifestyle change in conjunction to the use of this tool, right? So using your hammer, your screwdriver, in addition to your nail gun. I don't know why I'm doing
Nail
tools.
gun. That's great.
Whatever. I don't know anything about tools. So I think that going into it and looking at it as a magic bullet is actually really harmful. But if we're going to use it as something that we can add to the programming to help work alongside of the things that we know are undoubtedly going to cause this type of sustainable change. Notice I said sustainable change. Losing 100 pounds quickly is hard. Did it? It's hard. Maintaining that weight loss, I'm 7 years at goal, and I have to focus my energy on that every single day that I wake up. And you know what? Even 7 years later, some of those old thoughts will creep back in. I'll walk into Publix and I'll be by the bakery and I'll smell chocolate cake or something. And I'm like, what do I do? And then I remember I have the tools. I know that that's not for me right now. So it's really operating under the assumption that the illusion isn't that you're going to be able to do whatever you want and lose weight, but this is a valuable tool that you can use alongside of lots of other changes that you can add to your life. And those changes are behavioral. It's what Megan said about establishing those habits. So if you start doing it while you're on the GLP-1, by the time you reach your weight loss goal, they will be established.
Yep.
But if you wait until you are done using the GLP-1, not only have you not established those tools, but now we're going to take that away, and it's going to be exponentially more difficult for you not to regress into those habits. So when it comes to using something like a GLP-1, if it's something that works for you and it's something that your trainers and your coaches have decided is a good option for you, absolutely. But make sure that you are adjusting all parts of yourself. So mind, body, soul, as you go on that journey, because I have seen this with a client who was on a GLP-1, lost a lot of weight, but did not really establish the habit she needed in order to keep that sustainable over a long period of time. So use your coaches, lean on your communities, and know that it's not a magic bullet, but it can definitely help you on your journey.
Yeah, so many great points with that. I got to say, and she really nailed on some things that I wanted to kind of add on to with that, is that, you know, in a lot of cases, people, or women and men, really are going into this already under eating. You know, the reason for their weight gain was malnutrition and insulin resistance and all the things. So they were most likely going in under eating already, and now this makes this situation worse, right? So if that's not course corrected during the time that you're on these meds, then you're going to be setting yourself up for a very, very nasty, tail end of this.
Yeah.
Going back. So the rebound's going to be really bad. So you want to know that going into it. You want to have a plan going into it, but you also want to have an exit plan going into it, and where you want to be when you come out and how you're going to get there. It's not as simple as just taking an injection and the magic happens and everything's fixed. This can make matters way worse for an individual if it's done improperly. So having that plan is essential going into it, and working on the things that made you gain that weight in the first place. If it was overeating, these are things that need to be fixed while you're in it, and fixing hormone levels. So part of the reverse diet is rehabilitating the hormones as well. So when those calories are down, your testosterone's coming down, estrogen could be coming down, progesterone, all the things. So that reverse diet after is essential to bring those hormones up as well and bring your body back to health. So you don't want to run something like a peptide until you're just like, I got the weight off. I'm just going to stop it, but I'm eating 800 calories and then expect that that's going to be okay. You need to microdose, work its way down as you're reversing out of it. And if you don't know how to do that, I strongly advise using a
Yep.
coach. I advise using a coach anyway. If you're going to use any type of peptide that has an influence on your body composition, if you don't know it thoroughly inside out, I highly recommend using a coach for this. If not for anything else, to get optimum use out of it, because these things aren't cheap.
Yep.
You know that. So if you're going to invest that money into it, you want to get the most out of it.
And you want to have
You
the
know.
long-term results, like we had a client that she was eating very low calories, right? So while she was on the drug, and just so people can kind of understand, when your calories are very low and your body gets used to that, it figures out how to live in that famine. But if you slowly start bringing it up as you're on the drug, now your body can get used to it, right? And you have that guard on there to make sure that you don't have all these insulin spikes. You're protected. So when you think about it, just slowly bringing things up while you're protected, then you get to the top. And if you say, okay, I'm at my maintenance calories where I should be right now, and you want to start tapering off the drug, now your body's used to processing it. Now your body has figured out how to do it. You slowly can come off of that drug if you choose to. And then you'll be in a great place because now your body knows how to do it and your calories are in a good place. So I think it's just really working, whether you are overeating, undereating, doing excessive cardio, when you start a drug, being educated about it, understanding how it works with the body. Because if you understand what you are doing and how the drug works, then you can be able to utilize things and adjust things with your diet, nutrition, training in order to get the best results and sustain it. So like Calvin said, like it's a really expensive drug. And if you're going to spend all that money, it's like going and buying a Porsche and then you're going to go ahead and I don't know, go run it through a right, and go crash it. Like, why? Like you
some cheap gas in it.
put some cheap gas. So you definitely want to make sure that you're doing all the things and having the mindset on point. So when you are done, that you've already attacked those triggers, right? Already have identified those triggers, identified the things that usually throw you off. Amanda tells me all the time, like whatever happened in childhood that caused that relationship with food, that needs to be addressed. Because when you come off and you're eating all the food and you have those little things in your head of those associations and you have not addressed them, those things will come creeping back. And like Amanda said, she's 7-8 years post and she still has those little voices, but she's super strong and she's figured out what they are, how to navigate through them. So having the support with that, I think, is why a lot of our clients that are on these drugs had a lot of success, because they understand how to move through those mindset trips, as well as understand the training aspect. And like Whitney had brought up something I just thought of, with the little weights. If you are not doing any weight training, you have never done weight training, that doesn't mean that you have to start like squatting and deadlifting 300 pounds. Like you do, like she was saying, you start where you are. If they're at 3-pound weights, start at 3-pound weights and then work your way up. But I think the important thing that she said is cardio it removes calories. So it's just like lowering your calories more. So you don't want to use that. The drug is going to do what it needs to as far as your insulin and working that aspect. So if you have your nutrition and your training congruent and your mindset's in a good place, that's where you're going to get the best results, the least amount of side effects, and being able to sustain things when you're done.
Right. And I know our coaches are trained well with this, and a good coach is going to know how to do this, that they can get you to continue losing body fat as you're in that reverse all the way up to your maintenance calories.
Yep.
And it's important to understand that, especially when using a peptide, that gives you that extra advantage in doing that. So that's something, like I said, you want to kind of have that in the plans of the duration of this peptide that you're using. And if you're getting it from a practitioner and they're telling you that you can just stay on this for life, you need to run and go find a different practitioner, because that is not okay to do. And it's not necessary.
Yeah, and if I piggyback off of like a whole physician aspect and then like why it's important to have a coach to coach you through this, is that physicians, when they go through med school, it is very little nutrition, and that is not their specialty. I mean, a couple of people I know personally that have been on these types of medications, when they go see their physician, it's a basic, how are you doing? Okay, check, reorder. That's it. Like, there's
Yep.
no guidance. And that's not why they're there. So that is another reason why having a coach to walk you through this journey and do that education and guide you and give you all the tools to put in that toolbox is so important.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's because there is a lot.
Because
These poor
insurance is
doctors get
covering it
a lot
now.
of slack, for this. But these doctors aren't there for nutritional advice. They're there to patch you up when you're bleeding, when it's something that's life threatening. They're there, and that's who you want to go to. Don't go to a nutrition coach, But when it's nutrition advice and this area that we sit in here, we're the ones you want to see. A nutrition coach is the person that you want to see in this time. And we're educated on these things. And that's the advice. So you may need to get it through a practitioner, but you want to have that plan put into place and make sure that it's being monitored properly.
And I think that's a really important thing too that Megan just said. And I think a lot of people don't realize how little a lot of physicians know about nutrition just because it's not in their curriculum. And so I think exactly like Calvin said, you go in to see them and trust them for the things that they're trained for, but you're not going to get the breakdown on nutrition and lifestyle and training and all of those habits that you need in conjunction, and that goes in a couple, like plenty of other aspects of life. I've heard people say, well, my heart doctor said keto is great. And it's like, okay. But,
And it could
Yeah.
be, and it could be for the
And
right
maybe-
person, right?
right.
And
right.
it's a
Like, that's
tool.
broad.
It is a tool,
Yeah.
But again, I think
maybe not that person,
right.
though.
And but did they have the time to really sit and talk to the client and talk to the patient and say, okay,
Exactly.
what have you been doing? Well, I've been eating healthy. Like, I hear that all the time. But when I get people to log their food, they're eating healthy, but eating 800 calories of healthy.
Or
Sorry,
3,000
Amanda.
calories of healthy.
Yeah.
I think the thing that people forget a lot is that your body is controlled by your brain. So whatever you use in your physical body can do wonderful things for your physical body. But we are human beings and we have free will. And you can still choose to eat an entire cheesecake to your face if you choose to do so. So if you don't address the other pieces of the puzzle, you're not going to get the result that you're looking for. It has to be an all-encompassing thing. And everything we do starts up here. So if we're ignoring that piece, so if we're ignoring that the food is an emotional response for a lot of people, if we're ignoring that food is comfort, food is love, if we're ignoring behavioral habits that cause us to binge eat or overeat or undereat, they're just going to be looming in the background while you drop that weight. And then when you pull it back and there's nothing to cover it anymore, they will jump out and ruin your life. So you have to remember that there are multiple moving pieces here. Nothing in life is ever a catch-all for everything.
Well, and we've seen this
say,
before, right? With like when gastric bypass first came out, and how many people just went in, got the surgery, and then went right back because, and Amanda hit it like right on the head. And I used to watch these shows and be like, they don't ever address anything. Like they don't send them to a therapist. They don't, that was a big thing because you don't get to that point from eating out of hunger and from eating on your body's cues. There's a lot going on underneath the surface that has to be addressed to get that long-term sustainable results that you want.
Yep, it's true.
Yeah. The mental aspect is probably the biggest element to all of this, and that ends up being the downfall, and if they don't have that understanding, then it's not something they should be messing with. And if they're getting nutritional advice from somebody that doesn't bother to ask about their history before prescribing something, they need to turn around and walk away.
Yep.
Very important to know that.
Yep. And the last aspect I'm going to say is because the drug is now, a lot of insurance companies are covering it. So everybody is like recommending it and not taking the time to do that. But also understanding that their cost wise, I've also heard a lot of clients that are going for, well, I can find it online. Make sure you are finding a provider that has knowledge, that understands, and is getting the peptides from a place that is pharmaceutical grade, that is, because there's some things that you want to, like, you could chimp out on, you could cheat and do the cheap version of something, but something that you're injecting into your system is really not the place you want to start pinching pennies. So that's another thing, is just because I have had clients that have gotten cheaper versions from somewhere and welts in their body parts, being able to have sensitivities now and having other issues, health related issues, because of trying to find the cheaper product. So that's just something else that I want to throw out there for sure.
Yeah, the quality matters.
Absolutely.
100%.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up. And if those listening, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our podcast. And if you wouldn't mind sharing a review, we would really appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys. Till next time, have a great one. Thanks for tuning in to Master Your Metabolism. If you found value in today's episode, it would mean the world to us if you'd hit subscribe and share this episode with someone who could use a little guidance in their health journey. Ready to take the next step? Head over to www.mastersfitnesscoaching.com and you can book a free call right from the site so we can chat about your goals and how we can help support you. Don't forget to join our Facebook group where we're sharing coaching tips, support, and tricks to help keep you on track and continue making progress. You don't have to do this alone. We're here to walk with you every step of the way. Until next time, stay consistent, stay kind to yourself, and keep mastering your metabolism. Let's do this together.